Hello and welcome to Casual Learning. I'm your host, John Bannan. I'm going to do a series of videos about genealogy. Now, I'm very passionate about genealogy, and I've been performing it for more than a couple of decades. So I know quite a bit about it. So this is the first video, Genealogy Part 1, and I'm going to address the question, what is genealogy? Genealogy is the study of families, family history, and family lineage. So, what you're doing is you're discovering who your relatives are, both past and present, and you try to take that back in time as far as you possibly can. And usually, this is put in the context of creating a family tree. Now, um, genealogy is a wonderful hobby. If you're the type of person who really enjoys researching and the challenges of researching, you'll love genealogy. There are certain questions in somebody's family background which are seemingly unanswerable unless you're extremely clever and figure out a way to get to it. So it can really highlight somebody's researching skills, somebody's how clever somebody is in putting connecting the dots and putting things together and in order to find an answer that 99% of people would miss or would never be able to hit upon. So if you enjoy that sort of clue type work, you would really enjoy genealogy. And the good thing about genealogy is most people in your family probably have very little idea of who their ancestors are, especially the further back in time you go. So you may end up being the only person who's really interested in the topic in your entire family. And that's good because that makes you the go-to person for your family when it comes to questions of family background and family trees and who's related to who and where people come from. So it can make you, that certain person in your family that people turn to when they have questions like this. Now, family information is very powerful and deep information. It really strikes a very deep chord in human beings. So, genealogical information is very powerful. It can really affect how people think about themselves. Um, and it's not the sort of thing that you just forget. People remember their family backgrounds, provided they were told about it in the first place. So, genealogy, genealogy can really give you access to some very emotional and powerful family information that can have a real impact on people in your family. Um, and again, most people in the typical family really have very little idea who they're related to, especially the further back in time you go. So you would be of great assistance to a lot of people in your family if you knew this stuff. And another thing is, most people aren't good at researching, and they don't even understand it or how to go about it. They just don't have the sort of engineering type of mind that is very good at researching. So they're intimidated by it and they won't be very good at it anyway. So if you're one of those people with that sort of mind for researching, you can be extremely valuable to your family and very helpful. Now, thankfully, in this internet age, You have access to online genealogical services like Ancestry.com. Now, Ancestry is an organization that's been around for decades. It's been involved in genealogy for a very long time, and they're probably one of the first, if not the first, genealogical uh, online sources. They're very good, and they have enormous amounts of resources for you to look at, and their online searching capabilities are fantastic. So that's and it's a very inexpensive service. It might be 150 bucks a year, but it's well worth it in light of what you get. And with Ancestry, you can even build family trees online, which is very important because when you research genealogy and you find these different connections in your family tree, you need to record it somewhere, or you're going to forget about it. In a year or two, you won't even remember that you found this. So you need to record it. So something like Ancestry has an online family tree and the ability to cite sources under each person, and that can be a great way to organize your finds so that you don't lose them. The only drawback is you have to have a Ancestry account in order to access the tree. So you have to be paying these guys to get access to the information that you created, you collected. The other way to do it is with paper. You can always keep files on your genealogical finds. You can create your own family tree. You can make copies of important documents, sources that you found that um, give the information that you found, and keep it in a file in a box in your house. And that's the old way of doing it, but you can do it that way as well, and you don't have to pay anybody for that box. You can keep it; it's free. In the old days, genealogy has been around forever. But in the old days, when you didn't have these online services, to do genealogy was a lot of footwork, and people would hire genealogists to actually research their genealogy for them. And they would have to go to government buildings and physically look at government records, maybe microfiche. And it was expensive, very expensive proposition, and very difficult and time consuming. Uh, you get the same information today, but you can get it like that using an online genealogical service. So they're much, much better and faster, and they have far more documents than the old style. In the old days, you might have published lists, genealogical lists of relatives. So there were genealogists who would research family trees, and then they would publish lists of all the relatives in those family trees. And you could reference a genealogical book to prove your genealogy. Um, or you'd go to government buildings and find them yourselves or hire a genealogist. So genealogy in the modern age is much, much easier and cheaper and better than the way it used to be. In fact, these old sources and books, you can now find them online in some place like Ancestry.com. So genealogy has become much cheaper, much better, much easier, and much more accessible to everybody, really. And it's a lot of fun, too. If you're the type of person who likes research and knowing about your family history, it's a lot of fun. In the old days, you would find a family tree in a family Bible. So the family would have this old family Bible, and in the back or the front, there would be actually a tree, handwritten tree of all the relatives as they were born, when they died. And this Bible would be handed from generation to generation. So genealogy has been around a long time, just it's been in manual or document form. And it's certainly not as good as it is today. One question is, well, why do you want to know about your family history? Who cares, right? They're all dead anyway. Well, the answer to that is family information is a very powerful form of information. It really uh, gets to the core of people. And it really can tell you who you are and where you came from. It really places your life in the context of a much greater um, generational, familiar path that you may be completely unaware of. You study genealogies and you realize that people have been doing the same thing over and over and over and over through the centuries. It really hasn't changed. I mean, people born, they grow up in their families, they get married, they have kids, they seek their fortunes, and then they die. And it's just the same cycle over and over and over again. And you realize that when you see the background that you have, that your relatives have done the same thing you've been doing, but they did it 100 years ago. It really gives you a sense of context and who you are, really. You can make discoveries in genealogy too. You can find out about famous people in your history, your family history, that you have connections to that you may not have even known about. You may even find some notorious people or even criminals. Um, they're interesting people nonetheless, especially the further back in time they go. But these people may be lurking in your background and you have no idea. Because generally speaking, you have your last name or your surname. But the further back you go in time with each generation, the number of surnames related to you goes up exponentially by a factor of two for each generation. So, the first generation, it's two to the first, meaning you got your parents, the last name of your father and your mother. You go up one generation, it's now two to the second. You got four names, your grandparents' names and their maiden names. And every generation you go up, it goes up just exponentially. Two to the third, two to the fourth. I mean, here you're talking about 16 people. So uh, the further back you go, you end up with a lot of surnames or last names that you're related to. And you may have no idea whatsoever that you're related to these people or that this name was even in your family history. And there are whole branches of these families related to you living in different parts of the world, different parts of the country that you had no idea about, had no idea um, that they even existed. So it's actually quite fascinating hobby, really, genealogy. Genealogy really shows you what other family members have done with their lives. And it can give you a sense of what you should be doing with your life or how you compare to what others have done in your family. It really gives you a sense of continuity and a sense of context of perhaps what's really important and what others have thought was important. Family members. And because they're family members, that can be a very persuasive force to most people because it's family. You can find other surprises in here. You can find family members in different religions uh, who lived in different areas of the world, different areas of the country, who had different sort of marital issues, maybe multiple spouses, multiple families. Um, all sorts of surprises that you can come across that it may be shocking or interesting or pleasant. You never know what you're going to find. Uh, Genealogy, once you know who your family is, you may be able to join certain societies or pursue certain paths to prove your eligibility as a member in a certain society. For instance, if you can show a past family member was in, let's say, the Revolutionary War or the Civil War. There are genealogical societies that you can join, provided you can give them the proof that you're a direct descendant of this person. So those are societies like the Sons of the American Revolution or the Daughters of the American Revolution. And they have similar societies for, I think, the Civil War too. Uh, Personally, I am a descendant of a couple, actually, I think at least two American Revolutionary War soldiers. One was a Captain Edward Roche from Delaware, and that would allow me to join the Sons of the American Revolution if I wanted to. So uh, you can actually have some fun being a genealogist and going to societies which have similar members as yourself. You may be searching these databases and you come across photographs of old family members that you didn't even know existed. And to see the face of somebody who lived 100 years ago or 150 years ago is really quite amazing. And to realize that this person is actually a relative of yours or maybe a great great grandfather. That's really something to see that. You could even discover people who are living today that are your relatives that you didn't know about. You could have multiple family trees. You could have a family tree. They could have a family tree. You could discover online, for instance, that there's connections between those trees and where the connections are. And you could discover relatives living today. Um, I know Ancestry has a DNA service where you can even discover people living today that are genetically related to you. And that's quite a valuable piece of information to know about somebody. And you can look at their family tree perhaps and discover where the connection is. So there's lots of interesting things that you can do with genealogy, especially today. And since it's online, you can do it from the comfort of your home on your laptop or even your cell phone. So it's a very easy thing to get involved in. And it's a lot of fun, and you can really discover a lot of very interesting things about your family and your family's past. Okay, I hope you learned something. This is part one. I'm going to do a few more videos on genealogy because there's a lot to talk about in terms of how you research and what approaches you should take. So hope you learned something and take care.